What is up, everyone? What is up? Welcome back to the Meme Ranch. And today we're going over some rather interesting court filings that came just one day after the vice presidential debate, where JD Vance smoked the killer clown Tampon Tim Walls. That was such a sight with his blue steel stare and like his fourth wall eye look, to the camera. That was so destructive to everything that they're doing right now to try to win over in the Harris camp, that now we have Jack Smith giving this damning allegation and filing that's just gonna so totally rip the Trump campaign apart. This is basically, there's a lot to unpack here. This trial was supposed to happen in March, but it didn't happen because the Supreme Court stepped in, and now many months later we're looking at everything that's getting thrown out the gate by Jack Smith, and they're basically trying to really set this up as a sort of an October surprise. So let's just kind of get into what MSNBC had earlier with Peter Navarro, of all people, talking about this. Peter's a good guy. There's no one I would rather have disseminate what's going on here.
You've worked for Donald Trump. Did it help or hurt your life?
Just a fact check. I was convicted for simply refusing to testify before Congress.
Yep.
Because it was my judgment, by the constitutional separation of powers, I shouldn't go there.
So you didn't want to, and I have time for that, but I wanted you to answer help or hurt your life. We'll get to that.
You implicated me in some kind of crime with Donald Trump.
No, we'll get to that.
I simply took a principled position. I'm glad I did that, and if my case, as it reaches the Supreme Court, establishes the rules about executive privilege and the constitutional separation of powers, it was well worth it. As far as serving with Donald Trump, I saved a lot of lives during the pandemic, and I created a lot of jobs 3 years before that, and I couldn't be more proud of serving this country, sir.
I share Peter's pride in having served my country. And on balance, to answer your question directly, Ari, it helped my life because I now have a platform for which to make my views, which I believe are representative of most Americans, known.
So I just want to point out here, this ambassador here that's speaking in the middle, Gordon Sondland, he was very much in the pro-Trump impeachment camp. He was very much in favor of seeing Trump getting impeached after January 6th, the second impeachment that they tried against Donald Trump that failed. And we're seeing Gordon here talking about this. I might play a little bit more of this clip, but there's actually a better clip that we have of Gordon where he talks directly on the issue of this sort of 180 that he's done, where he became anti-Trump and said not another term, but he came back around recently, actually, in this interview, which I will.
Let me ask something. Why is Navarro and did you say Sunderland?
Gordon Sunderland, yeah.
Sunderland. Why are they sitting next together on MSNBC? Is it because Sunderland's come to the aid of Navarro?
Well, I think
just about Trump.
I think that they're on the same page now, basically, and basically wanting, Trump to win again, despite, maybe having some disagreements and whatnot with Trump after January 6th. This Gordon Sunderland guy is basically saying the policies of the Biden-Harris administration are so outrageous that I cannot, in good faith, vote for Harris, all just because of this January 6th position that I had. And I think that it's a very telling sort of remark that I think that speaks to a lot of people in the country who are basically just so tired of hearing about January 6th all the time. Let's play this clip real quick that I have, if it'll play.
A no for you after that. Why was it important for you to say no more Trump because of his January 6th conduct, and do you stand by that?
No, I don't stand by it, and I'll tell you why. I've now lived 4 years under the Biden-Harris policies, and I have to say that those policies are not only becoming an existential threat to our country's way of life, but to our allies as well.
So when you
And it has to.
this is
No,
so
no,
Ambassador,
let me, no.
this is, I'll let you
Ari,
finish, but
no, I
this is
wanna
so
finish.
striking. You said it was a no for me after that, after January 6th.
I did.
And here we are right now.
I did.
And you're saying it's a yes for you.
It is a yes for me. It is an absolute yes for me. That is how badly the Biden-Harris team have prosecuted their job.
I mean,
but the whole point you seem to be making was that January 6th and that kind of attack on democracy is bigger than any policy difference.
I am seeing so many attacks on democracy that eclipse January 6th.
Caitlin, what did you think was going to happen?
Sarah.
What did Sunderland? I mean, I'm kind of trying to figure out what did he think was going to happen under Biden-Harris. Like this is like he walked around a corner and there it was, the boogeyman. You know, like he just now figured this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people had an emotional reaction and they thought to themselves in the moment, if they were weak on how to basically address the January 6th situation, they looked at it and they said, you know, we wave the white flag, you know, hand over the country, hand over the keys. And a lot of people were very short-sighted. And obviously there wasn't really much else they could do, you know. They didn't know if Trump was going to be able to have a comeback, which I think in the bottom of, you know, their heads, like they probably were like, oh yeah, there's no way he can't come back. So it raises the question of why cave over so easily and why put yourself in a position where you have to do a 180. I think maybe someone like Sunderland thinks that it's an effective way of being able to get across the point that, you know, regardless of this event that happened 4 years ago, that the left keeps bringing back up, that
J6.
Yeah.
Okay.
The alternative to go through this another 4 years is not worth it. And I think that it's almost like a talking point that they're trying to I think it's something that's on the minds of a lot of people, and they're just waiting for someone like Sonderland to come up here and speak it. And he's a perfect person because, you know, he got a little weak-kneed and sort of caved, and he was like, yeah, I don't think I would support Trump after that.
I see a pattern emerging from how people view narrative, in that if you're a little weak-minded, you fall for narrative.
Mhm.
If you're very intellectual, a smart person, very very understanding from a, I guess, analytical perspective, then you fall for narrative. Excuse me.
Yeah, you
But
fall
I think
for
people in the middle who aren't as worried about trying to seem smart or act smart or just follow what they're being told, don't fall for this trick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the thing, is so many things that we base our perceptions on of people are, when it comes to civil cases and criminal cases, we read what's in the indictment and we assume it all to be true because we think to ourselves, you know, why would a place of it, you know, it looks like it's out of such a place of an authority, because it is, you know, duh, that it just creates that, you know, difficult to disagree with point of view, where it's like, well, these are serious allegations. You know, it's hard to just assume that they would be, you know, taken out of, full cloth, you know. So I think that a lot of people want to have faith in the Justice Department institutions, that they kind of go along with things. Just like this Eric Adams indictment, you know, a lot of things look really bad in that. Same with the Diddy indictment, a lot of things look terrible with that. But we also have to remember, innocent until proven guilty, no matter how uh, uh, cartoonishly obvious, like it seems like someone is guilty. You know what I mean? Like it's one of the final tests or thresholds of the American justice system is, you know, and it's been going on for some time now. You know, it's not like, you know, necessarily hanging by a thread. But do we let our court of public opinion prosecute people, you know, basically tar and feather them before we actually go through, like, with the whole criminal justice or civil justice process. It's a dilemma as old as time, and I think that we're seeing it tested right now because I don't think a lot of people kind of like fade in and out of their care, and they're paying attention to criminal justice issues, law and crime news. But I think that the interest is at an all-time high, and people are trying to develop in their brains, these rationalizations for why they think someone is innocent, like definitely innocent, or why someone they think is definitely guilty. Um, and that's like the whole sort of like socio-dynamic with the Trump case is everyone feels like they're invested in it. Everyone feels like they have a personal stake in it, much like OJ, other celebrity trials that have happened in the past. But yeah, to this case though, to this new filing, uh, let's just kind of go through. Let's see what a very surface level outlet would say about it. Something like Axios. Um, oh, this is just the read filing. Yeah, so this is their headline. Trump resorted to crimes to try to keep power in 2020. Jack Smith alleges. Jack Smith outlined in a motion unsealed by a judge on Wednesday that what he called Trump's increasingly desperate efforts to subvert the 2020 presidential election. Trump and his legal team had opposed the motion, arguing it would interfere with the November election results. Judge Tanya Chutkan unsealed the redaction motion on Wednesday, and this is what Smith wrote. At its core, the defendant's scheme was a private one. He extensively used private actors and his campaign infrastructure to attempt to overturn the election results and operate in a private capacity as a candidate for office. And this private capacity is basically what he's trying to use to get over the Supreme Court immunity decision, basically making this allegation that he was basically sort of operating within the campaign himself. And it's got all these unnamed campaign personnel that are in the motion and everything, and they're trying to set this narrative that Trump is behind the scenes telling people like fake, basically allegedly fake all the information about fraud, and this is basically Jack Smith's play. And oh, thank you so much, former artist. Yeah, f the haters, f earhawk, whatever. We keep trying. We keep trying.
Thanks, bro.
That's the name of the game.
I like that one.
But yeah, so I mean, this is a 165 page filing. We could kind of go off of what the mainstream journalists are plucking out of this.
Well, Axios is left wing, not
Yeah,
just mainstream. In my
exactly.
opinion. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, like it definitely has a left leaning bias. So let's go through what Politico reporter Kyle Cheney plucked out of this. He is always on these types of legal cases. He is sort of the quintessential household name. And just like every reporter, it's easy to see kind of where one stands on things after they read their content for a little while. This is what Kyle Cheney says. A Trump campaign employee and alleged co-conspirators sought to foment chaos at the TCF ballot processing center in Detroit. He puts out a clip from the motion, and it says, in the immediate post-election period, while Trump claimed fraud without proof, his private operatives sought to create chaos rather than seek clarity at polling places where states were continuing to tabulate voters. On November 4th, 2020, a campaign employee, agent, and co-conspirator of the defendant tried to sow confusion when the ongoing vote count at the TCF Center in Detroit, Michigan looked unfavorable for the defendant.
Wait, hold on. This is the same tabulation center that covered the windows. Is that not right?
I believe I need to double check on that actually. Uh, Windows covered tabulation center. Do you think it was Detroit? That sounds
Well,
right.
when I was in Detroit, they shut. I mean, it was the venue we were in for Turning Point USA. You could walk around the corner, and that's where the postal thing was, right there.
So yeah, and CNN did like this is really spicy, I think, for like the mainstream media is really scared about this one because CNN did a whole fact check on it. I do recall this now that you brought this up, XVALA. It says right-wing media outlets. This is when was this reported? November 6th, 2020. It
Mhm.
says right-wing media outlets have portrayed a move at a Detroit ballot counting center as nefarious. A city official poured cold water on the assertions, explaining to CNN Business that the measure at the center of the controversy was taken to ensure private voter data wasn't inappropriately exposed to the public. That was the explanation at the time. So, yeah, that makes sense that there was, talk about Detroit at the TCF because of this whole sort of
So
warring
there was
information.
there was legitimate cause for concern when you're not able to observe a polling place. I mean, that's just common sense.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really difficult for Jack Smith. And for those of you who are paying attention out there, um, you know, feel free to ask any questions or
And
things
we're
like
what,
that. If
33 days away from the next election, and
yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I think what I was going to get at there is, Jack Smith is he comes at it from the perspective that there's absolutely no way, no possibility that any of this could have been genuine concern for the election. That it was some sort of far-flung scheme, coordinated to convince half the nation that the election was stolen. But I think that the one thing that would be so interesting is to give Trump truth serum and ask, if there was ever at any point that he, in that, several week period after November, like if he actually didn't believe for a second that the election was stolen and that he was just trying to
Trump,
intentionally yeah, I mean,
he's
like
always
basically
maintained he
this
believed it.
yeah, this requires it to be definitively true that Trump's entire goal was to intentionally sow chaos, and that he had every belief that he had lost the election fair and square. Like that is a lot of basically what this is entailing is that, if this is all true, it was all a giant smokescreen, uh, to basically cause like a riot to happen on January 6th. That's kind of, the that's they never outright say it, but when you read everything that is being portrayed and being put in all of this, that is essentially where it's getting at.
Are you saying
Uh,
they as in Axios or they as in Jack's
they
filing?
they as in the DOJ, as in the special counsel. Yeah.
Jack Smith or his attorneys or whatever. His
So this
filings.
is so this is a good question. Did Trump cuck and say that he lost? Technically, yes, he has said that he lost now, but he said that that he lost by a whisker, and he said that he was being sarcastic in that. But at the same time, like you have to you have to acknowledge that the concerns remain, but that you have to also move on, or else you're just stuck in this sort of loop of like, oh, 2020, 2020 all the time.
But put simply though, Trump has said yes, he lost, but the election was not fair and square. He's maintained both positions.
Yeah, this and this is something, that has angered some people, especially people who went to January 6th and got arrested because they think that there was basically, this moment during the 2024 campaign whenever Trump's, basically said that he lost or that, he was no longer the president. But see, I think that this is where it gets a lot of people because we have to all, every single one of us, step back for a second and realize that yes, Joe Biden is president. But does that change people's viewpoints about, whether they thought there was any funny business in 2020? I think that it's one of those things where, and this isn't me expressing my personal beliefs, but it's for people who have this, this weird paradox going on in their head over this whole thing, is that in many things, in many aspects of things in life, you can always chalk things down to perhaps two things can be true at once. I think that is a good way for dealing with paradoxes and things like that. Um, but okay, so we're gonna go and we're gonna find
That's catastrophic cucking. Which part of it? Two things at once?
two things at once. Yeah, tell us what you mean. Because two things, I mean, there's so many examples for two things at once. I can go down the gamut, but I wanted to see if we could find.
I'm gonna respond to. I think it's the same commenter, but Nick is not
Mhm.
consistent in his positions at all. I mean, that's just a fact. So I wouldn't. If you're basing reality off anything Nick Fuentes says, you might double check that.
Yeah, so here's where Trump admitted that he
24 election,
lost, according to
Donald Trump
MSNBC.
has finally admitted that he did, in fact, lose the 2020 race to now President Joe Biden.
And I became president. And then the second time, I got millions more votes than I got the first time. So I was told if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions more votes than that, and lost by a whisker.
Lost by a whisker. We should note, of course, that Donald Trump's lies about the 2020 election fueled the January 6th attack on the Capitol, as well as multiple state and federal indictments. Joining us now, Chief White House Correspondent for the New York Times, Peter Baker. Peter, always good to see you. So what do we make of this? Is this, I assume this was more of a slip of the tongue, and I doubt that Donald Trump is suddenly going to talk day in and day out about how he lost last time around. But also the fact that he's still obsessing about the 2020 election. Talk to us about the worries that some Republicans have that is going to turn off that thin slice of those undecided voters, those wobbly voters that he really needs to win this time around.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, John, that it's probably a slip of the tongue. He hasn't suddenly come forward and acknowledged that this whole thing for 4 years, almost 4 years, has been a big, the big lie, to use a phrase I've read before. And I think that, but it reveals in some ways, perhaps, that he knows what it has been. That's the thing that's always been a really interesting debate, right? Does he know it's a lie and he propagates it anyway, or does he live under some sort of a different reality in which he actually believes that he lost, that he won the election, it was stolen from him, even though there's zero evidence of that, and every body that has investigated it says it's not true. And it's really fascinating and kind of important. Do you want a president who lives in the world of reality, or who traffics in brazen lies, knowing that they're lies? He was told time and time again in 2020, after the election, that he had lost, that there were no, in fact, evidence of.
So this was part of the debate with
Mr.
Trump.
President,
Trump
for
said he was
3.5
being sarcastic. That's what he said at the last debate with Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get what former artist is saying now, because he's basically saying that loss by a whisker comment is catastrophic cuckoning. But he gets what we're saying about, the two things can be true. He lost because he's not president, but the election was stolen. So yeah, we're on the same page with that there. But yeah,
I think I remember former artists from before.
Yeah. He's been in the chat
before. Yeah.
And also we have a returning Packy Man card. He still thinks that the Fulton GA, not USB video, has more information. If you focus on the audio at 412, I'm not sure. It sounds like something. Send that to my DMs. I know you posted it on X chat, but I'm not seeing it there. So send it to my DMs. We'll look at that here in a second. But I wanted to we're talking about this whole Jack Smith, motion that was formerly sealed. It has redactions of many names, and it's painting this tapestry, this idea that Trump was sort of working. He was sort of the orchestrator behind all these false claims, making sure that these false claims were being peddled in order to sow doubt. That's what Jack Smith is alleging. Obviously, we're on the innocent until proven guilty side, as always, even though, obviously There's plenty of silly cases out there. It looks like Diddy is hella guilty, but we still have trials to go. Eric Adams is the same way, yada yada. There's so many nuances to this here. We're just trying to be fair. And I'll say this, put me on the record. If Trump, if any of this is true, if Trump survive, if a conviction against Trump in the January 6th case survives on appeal and it gets to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court looks at the facts and the Supreme Court determines that Trump did in fact do all this stuff and that he's guilty and the charges, the conviction should stand, then I'm going to respect, what happens. Because, we're looking at a duality here. And it's a very important duality that we're going to have to think about over the next several days, is that there are two paths essentially where Trump, he goes off into glory with another, 4 years as president. And I say glory not to, hyperbolize, but I mean, it'll be such a dramatic feat if he gets, to survive all this. And if he doesn't, then what we stand to witness is, sort of the smiting of MAGA, like in totality. Like there's not going to be a whole lot of MAGA left if Trump's future is just in a courtroom and then he winds up one day behind bars or something like that. But I'll get to something real quick that Alan Dershowitz has always pointed out, and it's the sheer fact that there was always the chance for this to head to a trial, and we already had a conviction in New York, and there's always the chance that there's a perception, there's an effect that happens on a voter who says, I can't vote for a felon or something like that. And then let's say the election rolls by, Trump loses, and then some point in the future, it all comes back and we find out that there's a reversal and that whatever conviction against Trump is actually not standing and he's not a convicted felon any longer. Then that's like, you can never be unburdened by what has been at that point. because at that point, you might have had the most dramatic use of unintentional election interference ever if it turns out that the courts...
Wait a minute. You said no. Intentional. In my opinion, intentional.
Yeah.
I know you have to be more careful.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's like this... It's this walking thread. And and it's true. I do have to give a courtesy nod, in this industry, to both sides, the defense and the prosecution. I can't just like write off one and be like,
I don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah,
I can just be real out here.
I want to play this clip. Really, Trump saying he lost really would not help him in the scenario you're describing. That statement alone meets the elements of the charges.
One thing I can maybe add some context to what you're saying, former artist, is that Trump understands the media and he understands fake news, the engine of fake news, the daily news cycle. So just because he says something like that, it could be just to get the press talking again about something that he doesn't feel like is as important to stand on as it maybe once was. I don't know. Just a guess.
There's a good X account, if we were it's called Mystery Grove, and he's always talking about like this idea of like crystalling and like, like basically like crystalling is just like caving in to like the black pill so much and like, believing the government and just being so very like pessimistic and like, oh, they're going to get him, he's going to be gone. That to the point where it's like, even if you're a diehard Trump supporter and you find yourself like being pessimistic so much to the point where you're crystalling, you're basically turning into a crystal. And I don't mean to sound like I'm doing that at all, but I think that, this is, I just find it so fascinating. I just find it fascinating that we're literally like, there's going to be a paradigm shift depending on the outcome of this election. It's going to be a bloodbath. They're going to come after MAGA so hard. They're going to come after it so hard. It's going to be like,
I mean, if he loses or if he wins or both, or both.
If he loses, also both if he wins. but I think even more so if he loses, because I think that you're gonna get like the Reaganites to come out of the ground, like Dawn of the Living Dead. They're gonna be like, clawing, their way back into, the Bush leagues, like we're gonna be trying, to get Dick Cheney's and things like that. Like Nikki Haley she's gonna use her podcast as a springboard to become the next 2028 and it's gonna be.
Well, I think
This is what happens if he loses. I just want to stress. Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's obvious.
what do you think happens with people like Nick Fuentes and Jackson Hinkle, those type of people, the fringe people in the MAGA America First movement?
It depends on whether, as long as Elon has X, I think that there's a way for free speech. People like that,
No, I'm saying if Trump loses, what happens to those figureheads?
That's what I'm saying. Is like I think that they will still be around. I think that they'll be maturing and they'll be having their own, audiences, looking and seeing everything that's happening. And I think that they'll still be around. I think that it'll just become.
I think the point
people won't know who to trust at that point.
The point I'm trying to make is the reason they exist is to garner support and power. That's all they're doing with what they say and what they do. So if there's a fractured MAGA party, a fractured America First movement, they're going to be actively recruiting people from that splintered scenario now. They're going to try and be getting their camps bigger.
Yeah, just like the Nick Fuentes is going to save America people. I'm sorry, former artist. I like you contributing with us, but come on, man. Come on. Like I feel like I don't know. I think Nick is hilarious. I think he's one of the funniest people on X. I love watching his clips. I think he's got a lot of room to grow. He's going to be on a presidential debate stage, no doubt. It's just the way that we're going with things. But I think that, yeah, I think he might have got you on this one. Isn't that the whole point of politics, to garner support?
No, you're right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're agreeing. That's what you do with politics, and that's what I'm saying is. What I'll be more clear about is both of them are waiting in the wings for something. Now, I'm not saying that. I just think they've always been waiting in the wings, is my point. They've ever since Nick emerged way back and Jackson Hinkle, same thing. They're waiting for their time. And that's what you do in politics, is you kind of wait for your turn. So if there is a splinter after the election because MAGA loses, they're going to swoop in like the vultures, to use a Kanye term. And they're going to be trying to outdo each other to get that support that's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, let's see this save from Trump
after you lost the 2020 election.
Where he
repeatedly falsely claimed
said
that
he was being
won,
sarcastic.
many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter.
True,
because we have to
Caitlin,
solve
right?
the problem
As
that we have.
the case it proceeded to the Supreme Court, basically that's what they said. We're not going to.
Yeah, they didn't really look at the facts in any of the cases. They didn't even get to any merits arguments over the cases. So, yeah, there's legal experts who are probably gonna like say like it wasn't technically standing, blah blah blah. But it gets down to the fact that no one wanted to really have anything to do with the affidavits. There wasn't enough time to look at all the evidence, frankly, and I just think that if the same scenario happened again, then the same exact scenario would play out. Like that's one of the problems right now with our system is that there's no good way to take a look at election results that are based on claims of discrepancies just right before certification, because certification oftentimes happens like a week or less than a month after the election occurs.
In theory, the system would work if you have a set of balls. If everyone involved has a set of balls, there can be something done about it, but nobody wants to.
Yeah, so we're looking at the final push by deranged Jack Smith, as Trump calls him, to push this narrative. I'm curious. I think Fox had a pretty good fair shake. Oh yeah, we got some fighting in the comments. Hell yeah, I like to see this, especially. What can Nick Fuentes do to save America? State your case, former artist.
Can I give my opinion of Nick? I've met Nick. I've been around him a little bit. I think Nick is really just about him. That doesn't mean somebody can't do something to contribute to save America. And I don't even know if your question's serious, but I think right now Nick is young and he's just about being popular, in which that's politics as well. Let's just acknowledge that. That is a major part of politics. So he's going to have to grow into whatever role it is that would cause him to do something significant.
Is Nick Fuentes on Aiden Ross right now?
Really?
Let's see. We might jump over to that.
That would be cool.
And by the way, Biden administration has tariffs too. Inflation is very high, but the cost, everything to do with fuel prices going.
Yeah, 5 more minutes.
Everything to do
5 more
with
minutes, Nick.
Okay.
A very crucial point. A very
with the
crucial point
quantitative
here.
easing.
If they don't cause inflation of the pricing of goods at the grocery store, then why would we see an increase in domestic production?
Because it will make it competitive for America to make the same things.
How?
If China, because it's basic math. If it costs I'm going to, if you stop interrupting me. If it costs less to make something in China because they have abundant labor than it does in the United States, then China can sell it at a lower price because their cost is lower. But if we make them pay more to bring their goods to the market, then they have to sell it for more, or they have to pay the tariff and they make less profit. And that makes it profitable for American companies to make. Can you stop interrupting me? Can you hang on?
Chinese products cost more.
Can you stop interrupting me, please?
Consumer? Sure.
It adds, but who pays the cost? China pays the cost to bring it to the market, not the consumer.
And who pays the cost once it's in the market?
Well, the consumer does.
Thank you.
But they're buying. But they're buying what they're already buying. They're just buying it from an American producer.
Yeah, for a higher price, right?
Yeah, so for a slightly marginally higher price, so we can have American production.
Okay. Yes,
but there's also economies of scale.
Thank you.
It stimulates American industry, and then America's able to produce what China would ordinarily produce.
Okay, all right. And America will produce it for a more expensive price because we don't have as cheap of labor as
it protects the American industry, which
by
is
causing inflation, right? Can you agree with me there?
Marginal. It's marginal.
Marginal increases.
But either way,
we're getting somewhere.
But it's really neither here. Well, and I said that earlier, so it's the same thing. But either way, the Biden administration has tariffs too. So it's basically a moot point.
No, it's not a moot point because once again, he wants to impose tariffs on all.
But you disagree with the Biden administration's policy, right?
Absolutely, right.
Okay,
I do disagree with tariffs.
What are we even arguing about?
110%.
Trump had tariffs. Biden has tariffs.
Tariffs
protect industry in America. You support that.
No, so the reason that this is the reason that this is a bad argument is because Trump wants more tariffs, right? I don't understand how this isn't evidently clear. I think what you're trying to do is kind of confuse people between me saying that tariffs that Biden and Harris imposed were bad, and me saying that when Donald Trump is elected, he wants to impose all tariffs on all imported goods. Right? One is worse than another. Okay, so
they're not.
This is kind of awkward because Nick's actually defending Trump's
does he just want to keep
policy.
the ones on China?
Yeah, no, he totally is.
The Trump policy,
and
but it's not
this is the thing is like,
okay, so then how is
that goes to
you can fact check that.
What you were basically saying.
Like they pay for all the,
yeah.
how they pay for 100.
Hang on a second. I can't deal with this crosstalk.
I think it's kind of awesome.
I just want to point out that yeah, it's like they are. What was your phrase? Earlier, you're like waiting in the
wings.
Yeah, waiting in the wings. I mean, this goes back to how much of the fact that Fuentes is still waiting in the wings. Like he has to, like we saw what happened earlier this year whenever he praised Kamala for the brat thing. And he was like, oh, look, Kamala has all the brat stuff. You know, it's, you know, I do the Apple dance or whatever. And Nick got smoked online for doing that. Like people were calling him, you know, what he is, gay, and basically he was getting ripped for that, but now here he is defending Trump, and this is what he has to do. And but simultaneously he wants to take the mask off half of the time and, you know, be more about himself. And like I guess that's what I'm getting at here is like he wouldn't be who he is without Trump. He couldn't be who he is without Trump.
You're right there. That's a fantastic point. America First is alive and well because of Donald Trump. 100%. Nick knows that, but Nick's not going to be tied to that because we're moving forward and he's waiting in the wings to take the reins whenever it's offered to him.
I agree. It was funny, former writers. I thought it was hilarious whenever he was saying the whole brat stuff. Like, I get it, but the plurality of people were just saying how gay and stupid it was that he was talking about that. Like, you can look back at the comments whenever that he was making those posts. Like,
I think I think his comment is right on, but some people just want to they look for anything to go after Nick on.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not trying to do that. I actually thought I want to be clear. I thought it was funny, but people did not think it was funny. They thought it was kind of like weird of him, and they thought that he was like doing a turncoat maneuver, which also, to his credit, you know, that is funny to get people riled up so much to do that. So yeah,
I know people. Kaylin knows I know this. I know people who know Nick, or know, I think they know Nick, but they think he's an Iranian agent. They think, you know, somebody's behind him, and that may be true. I think when I look at Nick, what I see is I've seen so many politicians over the year. I remember Donald Trump early on wanting to run for office way, way, way back. And I just thought this is so opportunistic and he's not serious. He was a Democrat, then he was a Republican. I think you can't count somebody like Nick out. And that's why I say waiting in the wings, because he could grow into a serious candidate at some point, even though probably most of these people, this guy probably arguing with him thinks there's no chance of that, but do not count that out.
I just think it's funny how we started talking about this earlier about how Trump's, you know, cuckoning was him admitting that he lost, but then saying later on that it was sarcasm. And now former artist is basically trying to say that this was satirical, which it is. I believe you. I'm with you on it, but you know, it's the whole thing that, you know, Trump saying I lost by a whisker. It's like not everyone picked up on that being sarcasm. Not everyone who saw the Nick Kamala satire picked up on that it was satire. So that was my whole point. You know, satire, sarcasm, they're hard to read sometimes among
especially
a plurality. Yeah. but I get it that's like the young, that's like a total young thing. It's like if you don't immediately pick up it's satire, like you're so old, you can't fit in. But I want to go back to this kick stream. This was funny.
Thank you both for giving you guys, you guys
Oh,
are
they're
very
ending it now.
and stuff. Thank you. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Sneeko. I'm sorry to cut you off.
All right, so the next subject that we agreed upon was Christianity. But to make it interesting, Nick, we can be more specific. We could talk about Christian nationalism.
Sure.
Okay, so the subject will be, is Christian nationalism good or bad? And
okay.
Well, let's start with Nick because we started with Dean last time. We'll do let's do 3-minute intro. I'll give you a 1-minute warning, and then I'll give Dean a 3-minute intro, and then we'll go free flowing. And if it's interruptions, we'll time it. But I think it was good so far. But Nick, take the floor. 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, I believe that America should have a religious government. We should have a Christian Catholic government. And, we have to face the fact that liberalism has failed. And the best example that liberalism is failing is that we're not having enough kids. The society, the civilization that doesn't have kids will cease to exist, and it will lose, and it is losing. Liberalism around the world is receding, and these more ancient tribal perennial cultures are thriving. Islam is the fastest growing religion. China is on the rise. Abortion. Tribalism, racialism, all these things, all these revanchist, historic ideologies.
He should mention abortion forced.
And they're all beating back liberalism because liberalism is weak. It is ineffectual. It's causing all kinds of perversity, degeneracy. People are not having kids. It's just sort of like anti-human and inimical to the human body. So, in addition to Catholicism and Christianity being true, liberalism is clearly bankrupt. Liberalism is clearly having a hard time. I think we should replace our state religion of liberalism with the state religion of Christianity. And I'm interested to see where Dean wants to take it, because obviously it's a huge topic, but I think we should have a Catholic country, not a liberal atheist one.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different ways that a conversation about Christian nationalism can go. I've debated people on Christian nationalism before that will
just do it. Quit talking about it.
False, right? We should still be a country that upholds
Christian
nationalism because it promotes better outcomes. But I think there's a
all right, kids. Today we're going to talk about Christian nationalism.
Immigration.
It's the great stuff. Oh, I just injected it in my veins. Inject that shit in my veins. Get that shit out of here. Or get that shit back in here. Get it in here. Christian nationalism.
Legislate. Given the Christian religion, right? We are led to believe that particular things are wrong because God said so. You said that you're a Catholic. I think in the Catholic faith, you'll kind of have a different range on how bad things are. Something can be a mortal sin, a venial sin, but something that I'd say here that is a very absurd conclusion given Christian nationalism is shit like blasphemy. So blasphemy, as defined by the Bible, is the worst sin that anyone can commit. Does that mean that people should go to jail for life for blasphemy? Well, I don't know, because we know that people should go to jail for life for murder, and if blasphemy is worse than murder, and we're operating under a system in a society with a government that legislates
this guy doesn't know the Bible
and these foundational beliefs as prescribed by Christianity, are we going to start sending people to jail for blasphemy too? I don't see how you'd be able to respond to that. I don't. And then a couple other things that we could say here. The Bible promotes very harmful bad beliefs.
You.
1 Samuel 15:3, God tells Saul and his men to genocide the Amalekite men, women, and girls. I bet if I was to engage in a conversation with this guy specifically about 1 Samuel 15:3, he'll end up saying that sometimes genocide's okay. Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46, God tells the Israelites that they can own the non-Israelites as human property for life. I bet if I was to have a conversation with this guy about that topic, he'd end up saying that no, slavery hasn't always been wrong, alongside other things, right? So we could talk about how Christianity is false. We could talk about how it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. We could talk about the absurdities that are already present in the Bible. But one last point that I'd like to bring up is if you're going to make an argument on the basis of the efficacy and the outcomes in which it would generate in society, which seemingly you started to there, well, what if we find another religion that generates better outcomes than the one that you hold to?
1 minute.
Okay, so the reason that you want a Christian nation is because it will promote human well-being and happiness. People are going to be having more kids and following these commandments. They'll be doing good. No degeneracy, none of that shit. Well, what if I told you that the LDS church had even better outcomes than the Catholic church? Would you all of a sudden be in support of an LDS-led state? Probably not. Okay, right? So that's another contradiction on its own. So feel free to kind of pick and choose there, respond to the point that you want, take it away.
So you said about birth rates or immigration. Well, here's the problem. Okay, one, the people that have liberalism are killing themselves. Okay, so the people that invented liberalism, that live in liberal societies, literally and figuratively are killing themselves. They're committing suicide. They're dying.
The guy that you worship.
Okay, are you going to interrupt me like 30 seconds into my rebuttal? That's crazy. No confidence in liberalism. They commit suicide. They die from desperate despair. They're addicted to drugs. All kinds of things.
Blasphemy!
They're all dying over there. Okay, we're dying in America. We're dying in Europe. And by the way, these people come from non-liberal or illiberal societies, and then their birth rate goes down. So even if you wanted to argue, oh, well, like, we could salvage liberalism with an endless supply of immigration from illiberal societies that have kids, when they get here, their birth rate goes down. And these are not liberal people. They come from illiberal places like China or Africa or Latin America. They come here, they assimilate, and within a few generations, the birth rate goes down because liberalism is suicidal. With regard to the question about efficacy and outcomes, I'm not arguing that we should have the religion with the best efficacy. I said liberalism has failed, and we know it's failed because it's committing suicide. So clearly, liberalism as a system is not working. And that's why, it's such a radical notion. People think that we would have blasphemy laws or religious laws. They think it's a radical notion. It's unthinkable. The current system must be replaced. It's an imperative. It's not a question of, whether or how or anything like that. It simply must be because
I think that everything Fuentes is saying can be accomplished by keeping half of what he's saying here and just getting rid of liberalism as like the main ideology. Because I think that, it's unrealistic to assume to think that even other sects of Christianity, like Baptists or Protestants or any other, like Lutheran, you name it, Presbyterian, that they're all going to sort of like fold under the Catholic Church. Even if Christians had a resurgence in the United States, like how do you get rid of the denominational, differences? I think that that's one of the points that this like sort of like this like Catholic idea of like making, it's like make America a Christian nation, but it's usually capital C, Catholic is sort of the actual implication there. And while I mean no disrespect at all to any of my Catholic friends, it's just sort of, the idea of sort of a totality being Catholic is sort of that's the part that seems unreachable, and honestly just kind of feels more like lip service whenever Fuentes says it, although I don't doubt that he's a devout Catholic, not in the slightest, but I think that he, yeah, I mean, I don't want to doubt people's faith.
I'm saying I think I know enough about him personally to know that he's not a devout Catholic.
Well, then what does he advocate for? Because I think that at the end of the day, it's like how does this ideal, how does this go ahead?
You have to read everything he's saying through a political lens, not a religious lens, because he's saying religion should be politics.
I think all I'm trying to say is that we come to an agreement that liberalism is the problem, but we don't suppose a one sort of like religion remedy to it, because at the end of the day, it gets back to the root of what he was saying, was that people aren't having enough kids, and it just so happens that regardless of whether you're Muslim or Jewish or Christian or whatever, most traditional religions, Abrahamic religions, they all have their ways of supplementing population growth, because there's sort of an expectation to get married and to have kids and to go forth and multiply. So I think that so I think that you solve the issue just by coming down hard against liberalism, or just deism, and like give yourself more than just like the supposition that there is a higher power, but dedicate yourself to some kind of religion. Like be something,
The age group is having this debate. they are looking for
But is killing a baby not cruel?
a cultural answer to these problems that the older generation hasn't solved, right? Maybe even created. So they're going to want to coalesce under one idea. And that's why you're having these discussions, these fights over more hardcore approaches to culture, society, how society's organized. This is the future. This is our immediate future right here, is deciding, hopefully not that we're going to be a Christian, Catholic nation. I think that's probably not the best idea. Or MAGA communism.
It's just not productive. Like it's not realistic, because I'll try my hardest throughout my whole life to see more people around me be saved and become followers of Christ. That is a genuine calling that I have, and I don't have shame in admitting that. But to sort of twist it like politically, I just think you would have more luck getting people on board the idea that maybe it's not so good to have a foundational like faith that doesn't believe in anything other than like science. Like if you're like a Fauci kind of, like trust, just like I believe in science.
You kind of end up
person.
in the same place when you do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
I believe, but I do think we're in a moment, moving forward, where this generation, they're looking for a very tight kind of brand to operate under as a society, and that's why you see these younger guys like Jackson Hinkle saying MAGA communism, and Nick Fuentes, America First. Catholic nationalism.
It's not
or even that mold bug guy. We need like a return to the monarchy.
Curtis Yarvin.
Curtis Yarvin. He's a Gen X guy, but still, these are ideas that are being floated about American society moving forward, and we're going to have this fight.
Yeah, like I just don't see how you like. And again, yes, of course, the Roman Empire was hella productive. Like there's no disputing that. But I'm just saying, how do we take what we have right now, where there's literally thousands of immigrants pouring in? Thankfully, the ones that are from, directly south of the border are probably already Catholic. So that's a silver lining. But for all the people, who are just immigrating here more on legal terms, like getting their green cards, people from other nations, we're such a melting pot now that it's just so, to me, it's like, and maybe to some of you out there that want to see, a total Catholic eclipse, like this is just a black pill moment, or I'm black pilling and you're, hard truthing out there. But I just don't see it. It doesn't seem realistic at this point to try to push this. I do think it is more realistic to push against liberalism and to all be like, okay, we're all going to, we're going to get along with the Muslim sects and the Jewish sects and other, the whole tapestry of a Christianity, but we're going to push back against liberalism. We're going to push back against nihilism. We're going to push back against postmodernism and all these things. And we'll be able to get by just by doing that, because those are the corrosive things, in my opinion. So, I think that at the end of the day, we likely wind up agreeing. I just don't think it's like, how long are you going to wait for everyone to become Catholic? That's that.
I do think that their generation is a little more collectivist in their approach to things, and they're a little bit more eager to have a groupthink dynamic be in charge. So I don't rule it out.
Nothing has improved under liberalism. We agree. We agree on this point.
Art has, but that's coming at too high a price.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, explain how you think art has.
I mean, I think our ability to express ideas that we would never be able to express as a Catholic nation. I mean, I was raised Catholic. I was confirmed. I was baptized. So I know what it is to be Catholic. So this is not an anti-Catholicism thing. It's just that exploring the humanities comes at the expense of rules. And that's why a good example of that is me making a gold MAGA hat has come at a cost to society now, because it's going counter to where we're at now. So I'm just saying, it's not that we have to be anti-religion to do humanities. It's just humanities is always going against the current to find the truth, to find where we are as humanity. And I think that impulse is a good thing creatively, but it's also completely destructive when that creeps into our government, our politics, our institutions. It's gotten too big, too corrosive, too controlling.
Well, I see what former artist is getting at here, because, it's hard to look at modern art and say that that is somehow better than what we saw, under the church. What he's saying here, it's like the majesty, the the structure, the whole statue of David. It's like, how do you look at sculptures like that and compare it to today's?
I think my view of the creative endeavors is a little bit broader than what he's trying to lay out there. It's not just visual arts. I look at things like our ability to put rockets up in space and land them as a creative endeavor. Obviously figurative painting hit its height back then. But as far as, what I do as an artist, it's not dependent on being a master at figurative works. I'm working in the digital realm, so I'm working with what we have now. And that's how you have to do it as an artist. I think probably he knows that, but
yeah, it's like kind of like the idea that we have, today, because of liberalism, we have advances like having electric lighting and things like that. But because of liberalism, we also have terrible architecture styles like brutalism and things like that. That all of and then modern art, whatever.
I think liberalism trips us up is
whatever Duchamp did, because a lot of people look at Duchamp and they're like, that's just garbage, and that was like the whole thing at the time was like, how can we look at and see this as art? And then that undercurrent sort of came in, and it sort of like paved way for like branching, expanding what is considered art. And then that gets into a lot of like contemporary criticisms of like our acceptance of like just anything as art.
Art has my view of art is a little different. I've developed it in reaction to the time I've lived in, and I view cave paintings as the first meme that made it. The first meme, like art. Art to me is the meme that made it out of the cave and has followed us through to contemporary society. So to me, the idea of art is a meme that we created and we've kept, and we've used it as our idea of religion and philosophy has evolved. The problem with liberalism, postmodernism, is we invite all kinds of stupid ideas into culture, and we're not allowed to throw them out. They all have to be accepted as equal. Just because we would maybe return to something that's more structured as a religious society doesn't mean you're going to see a return to amazing figurative paintings of Christ, whatnot. That's been done. So where do we go now?
Yeah, I think it's true that like we look at we see Da Vinci as, we think of him as a painter. Do we? Is that universally agreed upon?
Inventor, painter.
Inventor, painter, inventor slash painter. And I think that when you look at the things that he invented on paper, you know, a lot of those things get to what you're making the point about, which is like the rocket ship comparison. Like, you know, people like former artists might be like, oh, that's a, you know, dumb example. Because that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about, you know, beautiful paintings, works of art. But Da Vinci was both a painter and an inventor. And just as he was marvelous in the things that he crafted from a visual standpoint, the ingenuity of the things that he was making, like the tank and like the helicopter and everything like that, eventually paved way to some of the things that people were able to create today, and you know, into the Wright brothers and so on and so forth, and you know, to the point where now where we have rockets. So, you know, do we limit ourselves to thinking of things only as the glorious oil paintings that we?
There's nothing from stopping some artist who's super into Catholicism, Protestant, you know, as a Protestant or whatever, from pursuing these things. So they could exist now. But will culture accept them for what they are? That's my problem with postmodernism and liberalism, and in the state of American culture right now is we're trying to claw our way back to where we can say this is bullshit. We don't have to hold this as any value in culture. That's what I would like to see. That's probably a step toward what you're wanting.
Yeah, I just think that, you know, no one is doing the type of work that was done back under the church anymore, because there was a lot more, you know, one can look back on that and say, yeah, it functioned better than it ever has been. And those people are 100% right. I mean, the things that were able to be accomplished under the church were were miraculous, and it should be lamented, the fact that we don't have that anymore. I do truly think that, but to be able to go back, or to be able to think that you can like reinvent that in today's modern America is just kind of like, you know, like you should have been born in a different time. You know, it's just it's not really going to um a modern masterpiece. Um
What's your definition of a masterpiece in the classic sense?
yeah, you name a classic piece of work. Um
It doesn't have to be an absolute masterpiece, but I mean, are you talking about like the Last Supper? Are you talking about the Mona Lisa? Are you talking about sculpture? What is it? Are you talking about a novel? Are we talking about technology like the printing press? Like, what is a masterpiece that you want to point to that we can say, okay, here's the equivalent now?
I think technology should be included in this, because there's a reason why.
No, it is. That's my argument. It is.
Mhm. I agree with that. You know it when you see it.
Well, I mean, I could say that too.
Mhm.
There's one right there, but you know it when you see it. I think there's plenty of. The problem isn't the art. The problem is culture's ability to recognize what's in front of it. I think some of the cave paintings they're absolute masterpieces in how they approached depicting what we assumed they were seeing, but just depicting a scene. And those were just of their time. You know, it's a masterpiece of their time, just like the Mona Lisa was. I've seen the Mona Lisa in person. I mean, we know it's a masterpiece because everyone says it is, but
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of paintings today, like in the last 50 years, that it's hard to name one.
I know what he's talking about, but I'm just saying it's not an artist problem, it's a culture problem. I think there's plenty of people that can paint as good or close to as good as a lot of the masters now. But what they did, the reason they were the masters, in my opinion, is that they discovered a technique at that time that was unique to their ability, but it was also unique to the use of the material. So, I mean, the modern idea of a masterpiece would be that same definition. Who is doing something unique with their medium that they have now that is a modern thing that's also going to last into the future? That, you know, the appreciation of it will last into the future. I guess you could have a debate around that, but I still think culture is not going to recognize it right now.
And I still get back to the point too, which is, when is the post neo-futurism Catholic Church going to come and save us from the perpetual dark age we've been in since the fall of the Roman.
Nick Fuentes comes and we shall only have masterpieces from here on out.
Since the fall of the Holy Roman Empire. Like, again, I'm not trying to be a doomer, but it's like, we're dealing with the cards that we're dealt with right now. And
rhetoric is an art form as well. Nick's very good at that.
The reason why it's so easy to defend the classics too is because it's like, that's the reference material. Like, that's what we have to go off of. It's like trying to say that modern movies suck because they forgot, or they ran out of ways to reinterpret Shakespeare. You know, it's like we're living in a time where there's an abundance and overabundance of content that it's just hard. It's like worse than a needle in a haystack at this point. And so with the ability for sort of anyone to create at this point, it's way too saturated. There's no more, you know, savants that, you know, stick out as the true artists of like a time.
I will say this about
except for like musicianship, you know, like with MJ and Kanye, you know, you're still able to see that, I think, when it comes to musicians. It's just a lot easier to pick out savants in that.
So the early masterpieces in sculpture were from Greece and from Roman times. As far as painting, you know, the Renaissance was, I would say, what people refer to as the old masters. So you start developing perspective, and you start getting into people who depict things more realistically as opposed to just simply, and it starts to look more real. So that is just an interpretation of using art. That doesn't make it the best. So if we just copy that, then it doesn't. If we just copy that style, it doesn't make it a masterpiece. It's because of what they did at the time.
Yeah,
anyway, I feel like we're getting too much into the art. Maybe we should listen to some more of this.
Yeah, let's go back into this.
Always. If this makes a religion true, all religions would be true. About your third point about the historicity of Jesus Christ, we have no first-hand accounts about Jesus Christ or his life. I do think that he was a real man that lived and died via a crucifixion, but Josephus, Tacitus, all these people came long after he died, and I think it's crazy that you're going to sit here and say that we have sufficient historical evidence to justify that Jesus Christ died and resurrected from the dead, but we don't have historical evidence to justify that the Holocaust happened and 6 million Jewish people died. I can give you a source right now that 6 million people did die. In fact, I could give you 200. For everyone watching, look up holocaustcontroversies.blogspot.com. It will give you an index to publish evidence on mass extermination in Auschwitz in Germany. There will be over 200 sources there, much more abundant evidence than what he could ever give for the existence of Jesus Christ and the idea that he's our God. So already contradictory there. And about the last point about the problem of evil, you said that the privation of evil was the fact that there wasn't a lot lot of good before Jesus came. No, the privation of evil is an ontological
didn't say
status
that.
of evil. Okay, so you don't know what your philosophical terms mean. You're also confusing what the problem of evil is. Okay, right? I would say my problem of evil would be the fact
20
that
seconds,
God's
Dean.
all good, God's all perfect, and God's all powerful, and nothing evil should exist in the world that we live in. I wish that we could have a longer discussion about this, man. Get into philosophy, show you that you don't know shit. But I guess we're gonna move on to the next topic.
Thank you, guys. All right, we're gonna do topic number 3. Is
homosexuality bad? And we'll start with Dean again. I'll give you a 3-minute intro. Same thing, Nick, 3 minute, and then I like the free flowing. It's been good so far.
I probably won't,
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Dean.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so I probably won't need all 3 minutes. It'll be pretty easy. I don't think that being gay is wrong because there's no good reason to believe that it is wrong. There's just, multiple arguments that, Nick could probably give me. One would just be gay wrong because Sky Daddy says so in the Bible. Another argument you could give me is something to do with like telos, like the natural function of our bodies would indicate that we have a prescriptive purpose on how we're supposed to use them. That's not how we're supposed to use them. I'd say that doesn't exist. At the end of the day, my stance is clear. Being gay is not wrong because there's no reason for it to be wrong. And I guess we'll just hear Nick's reason why it is wrong, because that's probably where we're going to start. So I'll concede the rest of my time. Take it away, Nick.
Yeah, I love the Sky Daddy thing. It's like the idea that there's a transcendent God. You think there's a man in the clouds and I don't because I listen to science. It's just like the most brain dead new atheist. I'm surprised this stuff still exists.
Bro, you told me that you kill a baby if God told you to.
Hey, Dean. He has 3 minutes to interrupt. Dean, no more interruptions.
Yeah, silence while I attack your position. So here's the thing, okay? The homosexuality thing, I mean, we could argue that the faculty of the reproductive organs is to have sex. The purpose of them is to have sex. We have sexual organs to have sex, and sex is for the purpose of insemination, procreation. It's what it is. It's not, we can't get too creative. It always ends the same way, and it's made for one purpose. We could argue that there is a prohibition of it in the Catholic Catechism and in the Bible. But I don't even think we need to go that far. It's really a question of whether we think people can do whatever they want. And this gets back to morality. If your conception of morality comes from, a vague idea of empathy or do no harm, against harm, then you would say there's nothing necessarily wrong with suicide, drug abuse, homosexuality, gluttony, laziness, all kinds of other behaviors, because people say we own our bodies. We can make decisions. We're empowered, and we can kind of do whatever we want as long as we don't interfere with other people, as long as there's not an imposition on other people. That's really the fundamental premise. I reject that premise. I think that because we're created beings, we're created with a sense of dignity. Our souls and our bodies are connected, and God wants us to
I know how he could win
be
this
dignified.
argument.
And I think we all recognize that there are things that are dignified and things that are undignified. It's undignified
Hold on.
to be an addict. It's undignified to be lazy. It's undignified.
If he just said that homosexuality causes global warming, he'd win the debate right there.
To engage
1 minute,
in
Nick.
sodomy. What is it? 1 minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
So, sodomy is something that is violent. It's filthy. It's undignified, and I think it's a travesty. It's such an unfortunate thing. People celebrate it to wave these flags, but they're waving a flag of really a filthy and violent and gross act that I think anybody has a natural sense of morality would reject it. So, I mean, I just think it's disgusting, and things that are disgusting are probably wrong.
Okay, your argument, it's disgusting, therefore it's wrong. Hey, Nick, got a question. Is shitting disgusting?
No. Shitting is wrong. Good point. That's a good point.
That's the argument you gave.
I never thought of it that way.
You said it's disgusting, therefore it's wrong. Yeah, shitting. That's pretty gross.
It's a pretty good heuristic. Yeah, it's a pretty good. Well, and look,
that's the account.
Well, if you want to, if you want to talk about,
it's literally so fucking simple. Like, I mean, if your argument is, this is aesthetically unpleasing, therefore I find it disgusting, therefore I'm going to describe it as being morally wrong.
This is just
first
like
of all,
so low IQ.
Do you mind if? No, it's not low IQ. You just
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Explain your syllogism.
It doesn't need any further explanation.
So, anyways,
honestly.
here's my perspective. You're just saying that
It's
find it
unsanitary.
disgusting given your subjective mental states that lead you to the conclusion that it is something that's non-aesthetic. I think it's funny that you're giving me this argument when you've been chirping down my throat for the last 30 minutes that we need to rely on some objective standard to tell us what's right and wrong, even when we disagree. But now you're like, oh, my mental states are not conducive towards me finding this to be aesthetically pleasing, therefore it's morally wrong. It's just a little bit, out of reach for you. But overwhelmingly, I don't even know if I should give a dignified response to what you just told me. Nick just said, I don't like it, therefore it's wrong. You also referenced a couple other things there about just engaging in dignified actions. Once again, that's another, I don't like it, therefore it's wrong, right? I could say that being Nick Fuentes and talking about how 6 million people didn't die at the Holocaust is undignified, and all of a sudden, in my worldview, you're going to fucking jail, right? But I think that if you're going to make the argument that it's either wrong to be gay or it's wrong to engage in same-sex intercourse, you're going to have to give me a little bit more reason than the fact that it doesn't align with what's aesthetically pleasing to you.
Are you gay? Are you gay, just to establish for the debate?
No, I'm straight. Unlike you,
Okay.
I'm empathetic. I'm able to place myself in other people's shoes and see the world from a perspective and realize
You
what's right and
empathize.
what's
You
wrong,
place
even when
yourself
I'm
in
not
gay
gay.
people's shoes.
Yeah, and I can
So you
see how terrible
imagine what it
people
would
like
be
you are.
like to be gay?
No, I imagine what it would be like to be at the receiving end of your fucking
The receiving
tyranny.
end.
Of
You
your
empathize
fucking
with the
tyranny.
receiving end, huh? What is that
of
like?
Of like the tyranny of you and the other like white Christians that just
Oh,
come out here and
tyranny.
say, gay so bad,
White
therefore we're going to
Christians.
persecute these people.
Why would you
therefore
say
You're
that?
we're gonna
empathizing
write
with
in the
gay
Bible
men.
that
Are
they
you
kill
gay?
them.
Okay, interesting. Do you think about like gay sex? Do you empathize with gay sex at all?
Why is it always the
Things like
homophobic
that?
straight men that want to talk about gay sex?
It's a debate about homosexuality.
Yeah, you're talking, but you're getting a little bit too personal, Nick. I have a girlfriend. I'm sorry.
Okay, asking. I'm just asking. So
I
when
know,
I said
I know.
I'm just
It's
asking.
One of the
Can't you
many,
see you
one of the
love
many.
each other?
So here's the thing. I didn't say if it's disgusting, it's wrong. What I mean is, it's a pretty good heuristic that something is disgusting. If something
Don't
is
try to sound smart.
found to be
Don't use
disgusting, it's
words like
probably
heuristic.
wrong.
We don't care.
And here's, you
How
brought
is
up
Nick
fecal matter. You
losing
brought
this?
up,
How
you said
is he
shit.
losing
I'll say
this
fecal
argument?
matter. I'll be polite. Fecal matter is
I
offensive.
just want to point out,
It
Nick
has
is right, but
offensive
why is
odor,
he?
it has an offensive
Why is he
look,
having
and
such
so
a hard
on.
time
Why is
getting to the best point? That it's just
unsanitary?
it's just positive to positive, not positive to negative. You know what I mean? It's like
I don't know.
It's not excreting waste.
It's the birds and the bees, not the birds and the birds. Something like that.
It disgusts us on an instinctual basis for a very good reason. Okay. And that's why it's a heuristic. And we find the same thing about surgery and blood, why? And about snakes and about spiders. There's a reason for that. And the same thing is true about homosexuality. Now, it's like you look at the homosexual act, okay? If
Do you
it's,
mind if I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Sure. Yeah, you're just further like I look at it. It's
Further what?
gross,
You're just not hearing me.
So I am. So this same
You're
intuition.
not empathizing.
The same intuition that you're describing to me, and like the other how many people are watching, I don't even know, is essentially that you have this innate driven psychological response that when you look at this, it's bad. You kind of related this to looking at shit, and because when you look at shit, it's bad.
No, he did.
That's like driven via the fact that if you eat it, it could give you like bacteria, it can make you sick, whatever. Okay, but here's my point. This same innate like prejudice-driven response that you are holding towards gay people that lead you to the conclusion that it's thereby wrong is the same innate-driven prejudice response from white supremacists towards black people. So what would you say to a white supremacist giving you the same exact argument that you're giving me about gay people, but about black people? What if they made the argument that they just feel on some innate behavioral level that it is just wrong to be black? When I look at black people, I feel this way and that way, the same way that you're describing to me right now. And the reason that I think this point is so important to bring up here is, well, you're just describing your prejudice.
Okay, well, I would say, first of all, I don't have a prejudice against gay people. I really don't. I'm describing the act. I'm describing the act of what they're doing, which is filthy. If you look at a guy walking down the street, for the most part, like, let's say it was a guy wearing like guys' clothes.
Galen, do you think the guy on the left is trying to be more cool about it? Like, I don't know if the word is like a more on trend or something with his argument. Is this an argument over who's trendier?
I just think that Nick is being forced. It's actually an unforced error. The fact that he's getting so vulgarly like into the act to make his point is making Nick look more on the defensive about his idea, when all he's trying to say is that the Norman human reaction to something like the act that he's referring to should be like repulsion. And so he's saying that if your response isn't repulsion, but it's like delight or like pleasure. I can't believe we're even talking about this. That's so funny.
That's their topic. That's their debate. I just think, I don't know why
these guys are so gay.
The guy had to take it into a racial space because.
Yeah, and that's annoying too. Like, that guy sucks.
That's why I said, is he just trying to be trendy about this whole thing? I mean, I don't think he realizes that all people can have that bias against somebody who's not them. That's just human. That's going to happen.
Yeah, I just think that the point's not getting across very well from Nick, even though I get it, and even though the people watching us probably understand it. It's he's being too passionate about one specific aspect of this issue. Meanwhile, this other guy is like able to like look cool and be like, but that's just a preference, bro. That's just a preference. And you know, that's why this is so annoying.
That engages in that act, you are that person.
Right. So no, what I'm telling you is that sexual orientations are not defined upon the actions that you engage in.
What are they defined
on your attractions, right? And I'll give you a really good reason to believe this. Nick, at what age did you lose your virginity? Like 25?
I haven't. I'm Catholic.
Oh shit, Nick.
I'm waiting to get married.
Nick, you're not straight by your definition because you've never engaged in the action of heterosexual intercourse.
True. I'm asexual. I'm an asexual.
You can't get out of this
incel.
one. So you're going to make a joke because you know you can't get out of this.
It's not a joke.
Wait, so Nick, you're not straight?
Not yet. But I will be.
First here, folks, Nick Fuentes is not straight. Nick Fuentes is not straight, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make that one clear. I want to make that one very clear.
That's good.
That was good. So do you now see why we should predicate
my
the definition?
My sexuality is incel. It's involuntarily celibate.
So do you now see why we should predicate the definition of like straight and gay based upon
No, I think homosexuality is an
Nick
act.
say this.
Oh, okay.
Have
so
you?
Then you think being straight's an act too.
I've heard him say this.
So Nick Fuentes not.
You've heard him
that's
say
the
he's
absurdity
gay.
that I'll reach. If you want to say,
I heard him say he's
that
an
being
incel.
straight is predicated based upon the action, then go for it. It just means that Nick Fuentes isn't straight. Okay, and then also I want to talk about that action.
So you're empathizing with gay people. If you're envisioning yourself being gay, you're not straight either, buddy. If you're empathizing, if you're getting in their head, getting in their shoes, getting in their wherever.
Okay.
Then I don't know. I think it seems like you're kind of all the above. But
Nick, that's
but this is really childish.
I want to respond to that.
The question is whether it's moral.
Let me respond to that.
Please tell me about your empathy. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, sure. So that's
which
like a bad
partner
thing.
do you empathize more with? The one that's on top or the one that's on bottom? I'm curious.
Right.
Where's the empathy directed?
Right. I got a question. God's all knowing, right?
Here we go. Yes.
So God knows what it's like to get fucked in the ass by two dudes. So God empathizes with it. Why can't I?
That's great. Very good. Very good. No, God doesn't empathize with those people. God casts those people off.
Terrible. Oh, that's so bad.
That's great. It's very low IQ humor.
It's very low IQ humor. No, you're getting fucking dunked on repeatedly. I thought you'd be a better debater.
You're the guy that said you're empathizing with gay people, and you're saying that poo isn't filthy or something.
Oh no! So once again, my argument is that you have absolutely no reason to believe
this conversation is so gay. I had to start eating nuts.
Of yourself alongside others just like you that hold this baseless, trivial prejudice has led to generations of members of the LGBT. One moment, let me cook. That leads to generations of members
of the LGBT community.
Let me cook. You're getting a little bit frustrated. Sir, do I need to put the polka dots?
No. Give us the whole acronym.
Yeah, so generations of the LGBT
He can't.
plus
He doesn't know it.
right,
I
have
guarantee
lived
you he
under
doesn't
an
know the whole
oppressive
acronym.
system because
Oh
people
my
like you
gosh.
like to open up the front door of their house and then scream and shout how wrong it is to love another person in a consentful adult and non-incestuous relationship. It is absolutely fucking insane to me. And here you're gonna say you're gonna say, "Oh, Dean, you're boring me because I'm able to empathize with other humans." Is that like a new concept?
Yeah,
to
no,
you?
because you're a really good person. Being in favor of gay sex means you're a really good person and you empathize with people and care. It has nothing to do with whether you believe there's a natural law or anything and things we ought to do or not do with our bodies. It's because you're a really fucking wholesome, good person.
Wait, what
You're a
reason do you have
wholesome chungus.
I have a question. Why doesn't this guy on the left have a problem with incest? Or, I'm sorry. Why does he have a problem with incest?
It's incompatible.
Wait, can you define unnatural?
It's filthy. It's violent.
Good question.
It doesn't work. I mean, what is
Because that was his whole argument. Is like that's just a preference.
10 minutes.
Nick, is it?
Yeah, like the sexual act. I mean,
It's just because one of them is more socially acceptable than the other, obviously.
Yeah. So former artists would probably like this argument because it is a postmodern argument. It's just to make the guy who has some sort of principles look stupid.
Eat food, talk, speak.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's wrong to kiss your girlfriend because that's going against.
So your point's really good, Kalen.
That has a purpose in sexuality as well.
If you could say that your lips are made for kissing your girlfriend, why can't I say that the pee-pee's made for being inserted into the asshole?
Because
why can't I
asshole
say
isn't meant
that I
be
want to fuck my
penetrated.
cousin?
Because when that happens, it has long-term health effects. You could look, there are a lot of like ex-homosexuals that talk about how they have long-term, I mean, I don't want to get graphic, but they have to wear
Long-term health
diapers.
effects
They have to
equal-
wear
so-
diapers
So
because it's not
long-term health
natural.
effects equal unnatural.
Yeah, if you're persistently doing something that leads to long-term chronic problems like that, yeah.
Okay, wait. I think that this is
Also,
another.
it's dirty,
I think
and
that
that's
this
why
is
there's
another-
disease that
I
results
think
from
that
that
this
as
is
well.
another. I think that this is another trivial argument. Would you say that it's wrong to play the piano because you're unnaturally using your fingers to hit the keys that could lead to long-term
This
health
guy's an
effects? Such
idiot.
No,
as,
because
like,
it's not contrary to its nature.
Getting
Oh wait, but it
boring.
leads
This
to
guy's
long-term
so
negative health effects. And some
stupid. Oh
people,
my
it could
God.
lead to like their
He's
hands seizing up.
self-involved.
Or I
That's his
forget the
problem.
particular word, but it essentially leads to very like bad.
No, I
long-term
can't
health
even- I
effects,
can't
like, within
even-
the hands. So, like,
Yeah.
given your logic, why wouldn't you say that it's wrong to
Nah,
play
we're
the piano?
boarding.
Granted, right, that it's not in the nature, right? That was a trivial assumption, and it leads to negative long-term health effects.
I'm getting off that. That was getting so brain dead. I was getting so.
It was entertaining a little earlier,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? That's the problem with getting too liberal.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just like, I don't know. It's just like after a while, you can't really like even like listening to that circular firing squad on like logic that's taking place in that kid's brain.
Who was that?
I've never even heard that guy before, to be honest. It's probably
Apparently
somebody,
Aiden knew who he was, apparently.
probably some like Zoomer Destiny.
I can be Destiny.
I feel like, I don't know, we got super off topic tonight, but man, we covered a lot. We got into that stream with Nick, but
Thanks for the commenters in the chat. That was good. That helped push it along.
yeah, I want to put a finer point, I guess, like on the whole, point of the video, which was about the Jack Smith stuff. This was a final push by, let us remind you, a special counsel's office that has been found to be not officially or not lawfully appointed by another federal court of law in Florida, down in South, not South Palm Beach, but like and basically the Judge Cannon's court. Jack Smith is facing some hurdles there, and that's something to me that is another facet of this, is that this prosecutor is clinging on for dear life for his status to be upheld in what he's doing. So he's obviously trying to bring in some authority, where his authority is currently being questioned, and it is, whether it's intentional or not, and many people will think it's intentional, it is interfering with the election. It is trying to have an interfering effect. There's no way out of that effect, because everything is political when you get right down to it. So whether or not this will have an impact on voters, I really don't think it will, because the Trump cases haven't had much of an impact for a while on people, on what they're voting for. People are voting on the cost of goods. People are voting on things like immigration. People are voting on whether they're going to be able to afford a home in the next 5 years. This Jack Smith stuff, it's just more ways for them to get back at Trump for even running in 2016. It's where we're at currently in this cycle. Is you go all the way back to 2015 when he did the golden escalators. Ever since then, it's always been Trump versus the world. And this is the apex that we're looking at. This is their attempt to get one final push at convincing the public, convincing maybe a few Trump supporters that are on, sort of the dividing line of what they believe in, to perhaps change their vote. And so that's basically where we're at. We're just a little under a month away. And we're getting to the point where things are going to get really weird, really crazy. But the Meme Ranch has you guys covered. We're going to be in Butler this weekend. We're going to be doing some epic stuff, going live and showing you guys just what is going to happen for Trump as he's going to try to lead America into the next golden age. Hopefully we can give him something very cool. The gold MAGA hat. That's what we're aiming to do.
Trying to actually hand this off to him on camera. 24 karat gold over bronze. This is the hat that inspired the gold MAGA hat that Trump is marketing.
It's true. Yeah, you get campaign emails. I get campaign emails, text messages, marketing these golden MAGA hats that Trump signs and stuff like that. And it really feels like ever since it got debuted at CPAC, that's just been what they've been really pushing. Obviously, it's golden connections because everything Trump related is golden, but there's evidently a campaign interest in this golden hat. We will see if they are interested in showing it off. And if that
we'll
doesn't
let you know.
That doesn't happen at Butler, we have more opportunities. We're going to keep pushing this to get this into the cultural zeitgeist.
My goal is to get this on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office in 2025.
Yeah. But thank you guys for tuning in tonight for another episode of the Meme Ranch. It's been a blast. That was a fun stream. Like and subscribe. Give us a comment. Join our Discord in the description.
Check out memeranch.com.
Yes. Keep it real. And we'll see you next time here on the ranch. Peace out, guys.